Hello, thank you for joining me. This is our fifth video and our final video in our series on how to model a simple, common, typical residential switch plate. And what we're going to be doing with this video is I'm going to show you how to incorporate all the sketch elements into one sketch and show you how that works out. Sometimes it's convenient to have like I mentioned before, a one-stop shopping experience where you can have all your sketch elements into one sketch. So if you need to go back to that sketch or go back to any feature, you can actually change it in one location, which is probably going to be in the very top of your feature manager design tree. So let's do this. Let's go ahead and we don't need to delete the chamfer, but all of our hole cuts, our hole wizard, and our back shell and our back ribs, we're going to go ahead and get rid of those. So we can go ahead and delete them. When we do that, the sketch still remains. So we're going to go ahead and delete that. The hole wizard, all the hole wizard elements will live. The back shell, we're going to go ahead and delete that. Since we're going to have to redefine it in our ribs too, we're going to go ahead and delete that. You notice that went into failure, so we're not going to try to fix that because we're going to get rid of it. And if you want to select more than one element at one time, doing the control key allows you to do that too. So control key will allow you to select more than one element at one time. We're going to go ahead and delete that. Alright, we're ready to go. So from here, what I'm going to do is go into my sketch where I'm going to put in all of my elements I want to put in from this point on. So I'm going to put in my item for the hole cut. That's going to be a sketch for the hole cut, which is going to be a center rectangle. We're going to make that 1 inch by 0.4 inches. We're going to make sure we put these dimensions in a location where we can actually see them again. And then we're going to put in our elements for our hole wizard holes. So we're going to put in two lines in here, two construction lines, both from the top and the bottom, from the left to the right. You notice that when I do that, I'm picking up the midpoint relationship on either side, and that will fully define it, so I never have to put dimensions on that. And then we're going to put in points. I'm going to put a point up here. And remember how we did this last time? We're going to take that point, we're going to dimension it from that point to that line, and then go over the line. Up here it kind of gives us a radius. Down here it gives us a diameter. We're going to type in 2.375. And that's it. So now you'll notice, and this is kind of a phenomenon that you'll see in AutoCAD too, is that now we have, it's kind of like a donut in a way. When SolidWorks or AutoCAD or one of the other elements in AutoCAD with hatching or with the solid feature we're doing here in SolidWorks, usually starts in the middle of the object and will populate that with substance. And when it finds a line, a sketch line, it's going to, on one side, provide substance, and the other side is going to provide a void. So when it gets over here, it's going to be a void. It'll be a void on the outside from there on out. And when it gets to this line over here, it's going to put a void on the inside, which may not be exactly what we want. But let's go to the rebuild, and maybe we do want to do that. The drawback of having one feature that defines not only substance and a hole is if you want to do something with that hole, like create a linear pattern, you have to define this whole thing. You have to select the whole feature and move that around. We can't just select that hole because there's nothing over here, no hole over here to select. So I would suggest doing this. If you plan on doing something with a whole feature or another feature that comes after this, that create that as a different feature. And the way you would do that is you go to your base feature, our base feature. It's called base because we renamed that. And we go down here to select your contours, and we can select all the contours that we want. So one way to do that is we can select out the complete outside line. It'll select the chain around that, and it'll select everything in that, and it'll ignore everything that's on the inside of that. Another way of doing this is to select regions. We can select this region in here and select that region in here, so it does them both. Either way will work. Of course, this way takes 2 steps. The previous way only took 1. But sometimes one way is a little bit easier to follow than the other. So green check mark. And now we're going to take that sketch. We're going to do some of our additional elements to it. So we're going to take that hole, hole cut, and we're going to use that sketch number 1, and go up here to extrude cut. And we're going to use that selected contours option in here also. So this one is going to be just like we did before all. We're going to do through all, and go down here to select contours, and we're going to select that outside line. And it's not giving me a preview, which makes me think that it's going to be good. It's not going to fail. It's going to fail on us, because what we're doing is we're going to take a sketch on that plane and extrude it out, extrude cut out. So we're trying to cut something that's already cut, and it's not going to like us for that. But let's try it. Let's go to the green check mark. It's unable to locate the end of the feature. So if we just flip the direction on that, then it gives us our preview. That's going to be for through all. So we can at any time put in our chamfer. Let's do this. Let's take a rollback bar and roll that back. Let's put in our chamfer. We should remember the settings we had before. 0.0625. Items to chamfer. We can chamfer that whole face. Green check mark. And then we can take a rollback bar and pull that forward. And once we do that, now we can put in our hole wizard holes. So again, SolidWorks is going to remember this because we just did a hole wizard. So it's already going to have this settings in there. But let's do this before we do this hole wizard. Let's go to that sketch and turn that sketch on so we can actually see it. Because that's got our reference geometry in there, so we're going to tell it to show. So you can see that sketch in the background. It's gray in the background. We're not going to be able to edit that sketch unless we actually get into that sketch. But it gives us some geometry that we could use. So we're going to stick with all the settings that we had in there before. You know, the 100-degree flathead screw, number 8. It's going to be through all. And we're going to go to our positions. And what we're going to do is we're going to click in this face and then pick up some of the geometry that's there. Let's go ahead and go normal to. And if we go normal to, as opposed to being sideways like that, we can actually select that geometry. So now you see, as I take that little pencil part, that little pencil icon as part of my cursor over here, and rest it over that point, it's going to establish a coincident relationship with that. You can see the preview of the coincident relationship. And we do the same thing on the bottom and aim down there. So let's exaggerate that a little bit and just put off the line and go to the green check mark. Let's go back to our original sketch and see what we can do about fixing that. So we do have that dimension in there. What we didn't do was put that extra sketch element down there. So let's do this. Let's put that that point down there, which is the only thing that the hole wizard is going to consider. And we're going to click on this point down here with the control key depressed, and that center line, but not that dimension. And what we want to do is type in symmetric. So what it's going to do is going to take that line. If we do symmetric right here, it's going to bring it to that. It's going to take that point and bring it to that construction line, and probably put it right in that location where the end of that dimension is going to be. So go to symmetric, and now we have it in place. It's fully defined. It's black. We can go ahead and rebuild that. You notice that sketch 1 is still fully defined. And we're going to go back to our hole wizard and redefine that. So now our sketch 10, which defines our hole wizard hole locations, is underdefined because that point we used down here is not still has some freedom to it. Right click on that, go to edit sketch, and let's go ahead and bring that up to where the other point is. It's going to establish a coincident relationship. It's coincident to that line and coincident to that point. So we're in pretty good shape. Green check mark. And then rebuild. So we got a hole wizard hole locations. Let's do our shell. Just like we did before, it's going to remember the parameters that we had before. We're going to select that whole back face. Green check mark. So we're in pretty good shape there. And now that we don't need that sketch anymore, let's go ahead and delete that. Or not delete it, sorry. Bad choice of words. We're going to go to hide. We're going to go ahead and hide that. So last thing we need to do is put in our rib. Now we probably could have kept the old rib command in there, and it would have had some errors to fix. But we're going to go ahead and resketch that and show you what that looks like and that method. Being able to fix invalid sketch geometry is something we're going to cover in future films. So let's go back to the line command just like we did before. We chose the front face last time. We're going to choose this face this time. And we're going to start sketching. Sketch from that circle to the midpoint over here, midpoint of that feature to the midpoint of that feature, midpoint over here, midpoint to midpoint, and down. And again, I kind of put it to the center of that circle. We could easily correct that by taking that blue dot and bringing it back to that edge. So that's in pretty good shape. That should be ready to go. So we can go over here to features, go to rib. Remember, it's the parameters we had last time, which is going to be center thickness. Center offset is going to be 0.05 inches, 50,000ths of an inch. We want to make sure our material is selected to the right side and remember what we did last time, so that's good. and we're going to put in our draft angle. It didn't remember that, so we're going to have to re-enter that. And just exaggerate it a little bit. Let's maybe make that 5 degrees. Green check mark. So it's a little bit more prominent of a taper to it. And that's it. So it might be a little bit faster doing this, where you incorporate everything, a lot of your sketch geometry, various features into one sketch element. And if you find that in the top of your feature manager design tree, it might be a fairly easy thing to find, select, and edit. So thank you for joining me. Please join me for other videos.